Last day of the week here. Hey, 2 pages we're going to go through in science for chapter 3. We're going to review a little bit about ecosystems and then kind of talk about more about specific types of animals in ecosystems. But as always, first let me show you the assignment. Please remember, much like yesterday, I put this in here. Please complete both sides of the word. Both sides. Going to be mostly talking about a couple things. Number one, I want to focus community word. And then we're going to learn about the 3 types of animals. That means herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore. And please notice what you're going to do. Tell me what herbivore means, what the word is. Go through that. List 2 animals that are herbivores. And then, kind of a weird thing I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to draw the type of teeth that herbivores have. And if you notice, it's the same exact thing for herbivores and carnivores, focusing on their teeth. Anyways, let's get back into what an ecosystem is. If you remember, all the living and the non-living things in an environment, ecosystem, and how they interact. So you might have a hawk swooping down and grabbing a mouse for dinner. That's how they interact. I know it's not a great interaction for the mouse, but it's still an interaction, right? 2 living things, but the mouse might have been coming from its hole in the ground, which is a non-living thing, and of course they're both breathing air and they're both drinking water. All non-living things in their ecosystem. This is stuff we really went through, I think, in pretty good detail yesterday. I'm going to kind of just talk and kind of pop these up here as we go along. It's to just review the different types of large ecosystems. We had the desert, the driest of all, right? Most one we're familiar with because we live in a desert ecosystem. The grassland, a little bit of rain there, enough for the grasses, not enough for trees. The tundra, yeah, still some rain, but it's quite dry there. No trees at all. Cold, you're never going to catch me in the tundra, sorry. If you have a big, awesome birthday party and you're having the tundra, I'm not coming, sorry. Forests, quite a bit of rain. Quite a bit of rain. Lots of different types of animals. Enough rain for the trees. And again, maybe your favorite, but the tropical rainforest. Literally rain every day. If you're a weatherman there, you better have that little rain picture there to put in every single day because it's going to be raining. Tomorrow it's going to be raining. The next day it's going to be raining. Your birthday in a week it's going to be raining in the tropical rainforest. I know we're not meeting here in class, but I want to talk about some ecosystems. But you understand, anywhere that living things are found can be an ecosystem. I know we're talking about big areas of land. We talk about grassland and forest and desert ecosystems. Again, a river can be an ecosystem here. And all the living things in here, the fish and the turtles and the beaver and the trees and the moss and the grass, but all the non-living things, the water, non-living, the air, the rocks, the different things like that, and how they interact and things like that. Here again, a dead log could be an ecosystem. You might have all the different bugs and things crawling around in it and all the fungi decomposing it, but then you have a deer come by and a squirrel come by and different things like that. All different ecosystems. If you take a look here, oops, sorry about that. If you take a look here, come on. Looking at sorry about that, guys. Thank you for your patience. Again, if you're looking at here, I know in person in the classroom, but you could almost talk about our classroom as an ecosystem and how all the living people interact with one another. Everybody you talk to or pass by and things like that. And we're interacting with a bunch of non-living things, books and desks and pencils and air and things like that. But and we're going to stick here with nature and how we're discussing ecosystems. And if you remember, I did have something about a community there. On your assignment, you had to write down 4 different animals in our ecosystem community. But let me describe what a community is, okay? A community is made up of all the different populations in an area. Here is what I mean. I know this is a fictional book, but if you take the Jungle Book, you have all the different the one community in the jungle is made up of all the different monkeys and all the different, things in the cat family, the leopards or pumas, I don't even know what that guy is, and then you have all the bears, and then you have all the plants, and then you have all the humans. All those different animals and plants and living things are all part of the community, right? To narrow it down, when you talk population, you just pick one thing out of that community. So, if you just want the ant population, you just count the ants. You just focus on the ants. This is what scientists do. You have all kinds of different things going back to this picture of the community. Scientists can study the monkeys, the cats, the bears, the humans, the plants, but they have to just pick one population in that community, so they pick the ants. Now, you can pick a different population if you want. If you just want to focus on the rattlesnakes, you can do that, and that'd just be one population. Or you could focus on the hawks. That's another population. But in our desert ecosystem, we got all kinds of populations. We have the ants, we have the scorpions, we have the horny toads, we have the tarantulas, we have the coyotes, we have the bear, we have the deer. We have all these different populations, and all those populations put together make up our community. And so what I want to talk about in the community is all the different types of animals, and I hope it helps make it a little bit easier too, maybe a little closer to home. Talk about the human world here in New York City. Okay, this, you can imagine the community. You have humans, you have probably rats. That's icky, I know to think about, but they do. They have cats, they have dogs, they have birds, they have pigeons. They have all these different animals in their community. But if you want to just pick one species, pick one thing, that's when you talk about the population. And if you pick the population of New York City, in that case, if you want to pick the people, well, then you just count the people. You don't count the doggies, you don't count the kitties, you don't count the birds, just the people. That's one population. Now again, the community of New York City is made up of a lot of different populations. Humans, cats, birds, dogs, different things like that. If you just pick one thing, that's the population, which is why if you ever drive on a long trip and you enter a town, you might see that green sign. It has the town's name, but it also has population. Now in that town you might have a whole bunch of animals and things making up the community, the dogs, the cats, the people, but on the green sign they just pick the one thing, they just pick the people to tell you how many people live in that town. It doesn't count the kitties and the pets and the things like that, just the people. So we are actually going to focus, if you look at our desert ecosystem, we have a lot of different animals in our community. We have the lizards and the bobcat and the birds and the snakes. But again, if you just want to pick one population in a desert ecosystem, you can only pick out one. Well, let's pick the hawks there, huh? Let's focus on that. Now I want to talk about what most of your assignment is. If you remember, you're going to have to write what an herbivore is, and then you're going to have to list two animals that are herbivores, and then you're going to have to list the teeth, or draw a picture of the teeth. Here's what an herbivore is. If you see the first word in here, it's herb. You might know that herbs are plants. Well, that's exactly what an herbivore is. An herbivore is an animal that only eats plants. That's it. If you want some examples, you can pick the zebra. You can pick the magushy. All those are animals that only eat grass. I'm not trying to turn this cow into a cannibal, but if you have the nice, juiciest, wonderful steak and you put it in front of a cow, is never, ever, 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 ever going to eat it. Even if they have the perfect seasoning and sauce, they don't do it. They only eat plants. That's herbivores. You're never, ever, ever going to have a cow chasing after another animal to eat it. They don't do that. They just sit down there, munch on grass. They eat plants. What is amazing to me is that God designed a lot of herbivores to be some of the biggest animals. Not every herbivore is big, but some of our biggest animals are herbivores. Now, you have the definition. You have two types of animals that are herbivores. You can probably think of more, horses and things like that, right? But why am I focusing on the teeth? Well, you can tell a lot about what an animal eats by the teeth. And this is an example of an herbivore's teeth. Now, for the most part, please notice this is from a black-tailed deer, that they're very flat. They're very flat teeth. This is going to look kind of weird in my video, but if you stick your tongue kind of in the back here of your mouth, those are your flat teeth. We call them molars. If you ever notice, and chew with your mouth closed like Grandma says, if you ever notice how you chew, you're usually chewing in the very back part of your mouth because that's exactly what you're doing. You're chewing. Well, the zebra and the cow, that's all they need to do is chew the grass. They don't need to rip the meat off the bone because they don't eat meat. They only eat plants, right? Which is why their teeth are nice and flat. So for your assignment, I ask you to write the herbivore teeth, don't be having these big giant fangs. That's not right. That's not right. Herbivores have the nice flat teeth, just like in the back of your mouth, right? Now that's very different than our friends, the carnivores. These are the guys sometimes you gotta watch out for because they're interested only in meat. A carnivore is an animal that only eats other animals. Sometimes you might describe it as a carnivore as an animal that only eats meat. What I mean by that is not that they have to cook up hamburgers and hot dogs every day, but just like it says, they only eat other animals. You might think of a lot of different animals, but I tend to think of the lion. You can imagine they need teeth to rip that meat right off the bone. Different things like leopards and cheetahs, a lot of cat family animals are there. And here's a picture of a carnivore's teeth. This is where you can get those nice sharp fangs in there, because just remember what we talked about. What does a carnivore eat? Only meat. If you have this nice wonderful salad that you made and offer it to a carnivore, it's never going to eat it. You can pay it $1 million, it's not going to eat it. It only eats meat. But you can see these teeth that carnivores need because it is exactly like this. First of all, they take down the animal and kill it, and then they have to eat. And how in the world do you get that meat out the bone? You need sharp teeth like this in order to do that. Now, again, I hope I'm not grossing you out, but if you look at these sharp teeth, kind of, not in the middle, but kind of a little to the side here of the middle, those are your sharp teeth. You might call them your carnivore teeth if you want. If you ever go to KFC or Church's Chicken and you get that nice chicken leg, I bet you might not know this, but I bet you go like this, and you rip it off. Why? Because you have the teeth that are able to do that. Well, these cats, like these lions and things like that, they only need teeth like that, which is why they have these sharp ones like this to rip the meat off the bone. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but I talked about two different teeth that we have. Well, not all animals are herbivores, and not all animals are carnivores. We have some types of animals that are called omnivores. An omnivore, you might have guessed it, is an animal that eats both plants and other animals. They're not all that picky. If they have some meat, they're going to eat some meat. If they have some plants, they're going to eat some plants. Some of the most famous omnivores are bears. You might have seen, I think, a commercial a little while ago about the bears sitting in a river and waiting for the fish to jump up and eat the fish. Well, that's meat. This bear is eating some plants. They like to eat a lot of berries and nuts and things like that. A bear's not picky. They're going to eat meat if they have meat. They're going to eat plants if they can eat plants. Monkeys are very famous omnivores. They'll eat plants if they want plants, but they'll also attack other animals and eat them too. You might recognize the type of teeth here because you are an omnivore. Humans are omnivores. God gave us the teeth exactly like what you have to eat both plants and animals. Just like I said, these teeth right here are the ones to rip the meat off the bone. These flat teeth back here are made to just simply chew like an herbivore. You are not herbivores. You are not carnivores. We are all omnivores because we can eat meat and plants. Remember, carnivores, only meat. Only meat. Herbivores, only plants. Herbivores will never eat meat. They only eat plants. Omnivores, like you, can do both. In fact, if you have a nice, well-balanced meal, you might have meat with a little salad. There you go. Omnivore, eating meat and plants. So make sure when you draw your teeth, you have both the sharp teeth and the flat teeth for an omnivore. Or just look in the mirror and draw your own teeth. Anyways, that is your worksheet. Both sides. Please make sure you do both sides there. And hey, I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend as you praise your Savior.